What happens when the weakest wolf in the pack turns out to be the most powerful creature alive? For Alara Moonwhisper, life as an Omega meant keeping her head down, her voice silent, and her dreams buried deep. 23 winters she'd survived in the Silverpine Pack, invisible among the hierarchy of alphas and betas who ruled with iron claws and ancient law. She cleaned the packhouse floors, served meals to wolves who wouldn't meet her eyes, and endured the pitying glances of those who wondered why the moon goddess had cursed her with such weakness. Her wolf had never emerged, not even during her first shift ceremony at 16. The healers had whispered that perhaps she had no wolf at all, that she was broken, defective, less than whole. But when Alpha Dominic Ashcroft rejected her as his fated mate in front of 300 witnesses under the harvest moon, tearing their bond apart with words dripped in venom and eyes full of disgust, everything changed. And what happens? Next, no one was prepared for. Not the pack that cast her out, not the parents who'd kept her secrets, not the ancient evil stirring in the shadows, and certainly not the 10 immortal warriors who'd been waiting 1,000 years for her to finally wake up. The mate ceremony had been planned for months. Silver streamers hung from the great oaks surrounding the central clearing, their metallic surfaces catching moonlight and scattering it like fallen stars. The scent of roasted venison and honeyed mead hung thick in the autumn air, mingling with the musk of 300 wolves gathered in celebration. Alara had stood at the edge of the crowd, her thin frame wrapped in the simple gray dress her mother had sewn, the only gift her parents had offered when the summons came 3 days prior. "The Alpha has requested your presence at the harvest ceremony," the Beta courier had said, his forest and leather scent overpowering in the small cottage where Alara lived alone. "You are to stand with the unmated females." Her mother, Lydia, had gone pale. Her father, Marcus, had gripped the table edge until his knuckles whitened, but neither had spoken. Neither had warned her. Now, standing among the unmated she-wolves, all of them stronger, prettier, more worthy than her, Alara felt the first stirring of something she couldn't name. It started as a flutter beneath her ribs, a warmth that spread through her chest and down her arms. Around her, the other females, preened and postured, their perfumes of rose and jasmine and vanilla thick with anticipation. But Alara's own scent, the soft notes of lavender and morning dew that she'd been told was too subtle, too weak for a wolf, began to intensify. Alpha Dominic Ashcroft stood on the raised platform at the clearing center, and even Alara had to admit he was magnificent. 6.5 feet of pure muscle and dominant power, his dark hair caught the moonlight, and his eyes, a startling amber that marked him as true alpha, blood, swept across the gathered crowd. His scent rolled over them in waves, forest floors after rain, smoldering embers, ozone before a storm, and underneath it all, the sharp edge of steel. Power incarnate. Tonight, Dominic's voice carried across the clearing without effort. "We honor the moon goddess and the sacred bonds she weaves between mates." The crowd murmured their approval. Alara's heart hammered against her ribs. That warmth in her chest was growing, spreading, becoming almost painful in its intensity. "The goddess has blessed me," Dominic continued, and his lips curved into a smile that made the unmated females sigh. "I have found my fated mate." The warmth exploded into fire. Alara gasped, doubling over as an invisible cord snapped into place between her heart and the Alpha on the platform. The bond, sharp and undeniable, sang through her veins. She could feel him, his strength, his confidence, his absolute certainty of his own superiority. And she knew, with devastating clarity, that he felt her too. Dominic's smile vanished. His amber eyes locked onto Alara, and his expression shifted from triumph to disbelief to revulsion in the span of a heartbeat. "No," he breathed, but his voice still carried. The crowd had gone silent, every wolf turning to follow their alpha's horrified gaze to the small Omega in gray, trembling at the edge of the gathering. The bond pulled at Alara, urging her forward. Against her will, her feet moved, carrying her through the parting crowd. Wolves stepped back as if she carried disease, their faces showing shock, disgust, even fear. The scent of their judgment, sharp and acrid, made her eyes water. She reached the platform. Dominic stared down at her, his jaw clenched so tight she could hear his teeth grinding. "The moon goddess," someone whispered, has bound the Alpha to an Omega? She has no wolf, another voice hissed. How can she even be his mate? Dominic's nostrils flared. Alara could see the war raging behind his eyes, instinct demanding he accept the bond, pride and ambition recoiling from the very idea of being tied to the weakest wolf in the pack. Pride won. I, Dominic Ashcroft, Alpha of the Silver Pine Pack, his voice rang out clear and cruel, reject you, Alara Moonwhisper, as my mate. The bond didn't just break, it shattered. Alara felt it tear through her chest like claws rending flesh, felt her heart split open, felt something vital and irreplaceable rip away. She screamed, falling to her knees on the cold ground, clutching at her chest as if she could hold the pieces together through sheer will. Dominic swayed but remained standing, his face carved from stone. A thin line of blood trickled from his nose, the only sign of pain he allowed himself to show. "Remove her!" he commanded. Hands grabbed Alara's arms, rough, uncaring hands that hauled her to her feet even as she convulsed with agony. Through the haze of pain, she saw her parents in the crowd. Her mother was crying silently. Her father wouldn't meet her eyes. "Please," Alara gasped, reaching toward them. "Please help me." Her father turned away. Her mother followed. The guards dragged her through the crowd, past wolves who once ignored her and now looked at her with contempt. Past the beta females who'd never spoken to her but now whispered cruel speculations about what she'd done to trick the moon goddess into creating such an unnatural bond. Past the young pups who pointed and giggled at the Omega who dared to dream above her station. They threw her past the pack's borders, into the wild forest where rogues hunted and winter was already settling its frozen claws into the earth. Alara landed hard, her hands scraping against frozen ground, her dress tearing on thorns. "Don't come back," one guard spat. "The Alpha has decreed you are no longer pack. You are nothing." She heard their footsteps retreat, heard the sounds of the ceremony resuming, music and laughter, drifting through the trees like mockery. Alara pulled herself to her hands and knees, then to her feet. Her chest felt hollow where the bond had been, a gaping wound that bled agony with every breath. Snow had begun to fall, light flakes that caught in her hair and melted against her fevered skin. She stumbled forward, away from the packlands, away from the only home she'd ever known. She had no destination, no plan, no hope. She just walked, because stopping meant accepting that this was her death, and some stubborn part of her wasn't ready to surrender yet. The snow fell harder. The temperature dropped. Alara's thin dress provided no protection against the November storm that rolled in from the north, turning the gentle snowfall into a blinding blizzard. Her teeth chattered, her fingers went numb. The pain in her chest had become a constant, dull throb that matched the slowing rhythm of her heart. How long she walked, she didn't know. Hours, maybe, long enough for the last traces of the pack's scent markers to fade. Long enough for her footprints to fill with snow behind her, erasing any evidence she'd ever existed. Her foot caught on a hidden root. She fell, hard, and didn't have the strength to rise. The snow felt almost warm now, soft and inviting. Her mother had once told her that freezing to death was gentle, that you simply fell asleep and never woke up. "I'm sorry," Alara whispered to no one, to everyone, to the moon goddess who'd given her a gift and then torn it away. "I'm sorry I wasn't strong enough." Through the howling wind, she thought she saw a shape, dark and large against the white snow. A barn, maybe, or the ruins of some old structure. Using the last reserves of her strength, Alara crawled toward it, her dress dragging behind her, leaving a dark trail in the pristine white. It was a barn, half collapsed and ancient, but 3 walls still stood and half a roof remained to block the worst of the wind. Alara dragged herself inside, into the corner where hay had once been stored. Now only rotted wood and frozen earth remained, but it was shelter, and shelter was more than she'd dared to hope for. She curled into a ball, wrapping her arms around herself, trying to conserve what little warmth remained in her body. The wind screamed outside. Snow drifted through the gaps in the walls. "This is it," she thought. "This is how I die, alone, rejected, forgotten." Her eyes drifted closed. The pain in her chest began to fade, along with the cold, along with everything. Darkness crept in from the edges of her vision, soft and welcoming. Alara Moonwhisper, the weakest Omega of the Silverpine pack, prepared to meet the moon goddess and demand answers. But the goddess, it seemed, had other plans. Warmth. That was the first thing Alara noticed as consciousness flickered back like a stubborn candle flame. Warmth surrounding her, pressing against her from all sides, not the artificial heat of fire, but the living warmth of bodies, of breath, of life. Her eyes opened slowly, vision blurry and unfocused. The barn's interior was dark, but pale dawnlight filtered through the gaps in the walls, enough to see by, enough to see them. Wolves. Massive wolves, surrounding her in a tight circle, their bodies pressed close, sharing their heat. 1, 2, 3. Alara's breath caught. 4, 5, 6. Her mind struggled to process what she was seeing. 7, 8, 9. And there, slightly apart from the others, watching her with eyes that glowed like molten silver. 10. 10 wolves, each one larger than any alpha she'd ever seen, their fur ranging from pure white to midnight black, from silver gray to deep russet. They lay in a protective circle around her, a living barrier between her fragile human body and the killing cold. They'd saved her. These massive, terrifying creatures had found her dying in the snow and chosen to keep her alive. The largest wolf, the one with silver eyes, rose to his feet. He had to be 7 feet tall at the shoulder, his black fur thick and lustrous, his presence radiating a power that made the air shimmer. He padded toward her on paws the size of dinner plates, and Alara's survival instincts screamed at her to run. But she couldn't run, could barely move, could only watch as the massive wolf lowered his great head and sniffed her gently, his breath warm against her face. His scent washed over her, aged oak, winter snow, pine forests, and the sharp electric charge of an incoming storm. It was nothing like Dominic's scent. This was older, deeper, carrying weight that spoke of centuries rather than years. The wolf's form began to shimmer. Alara gasped as bones flowed, not cracked, not broke, but flowed like water finding a new shape. Fur receded into skin, massive paws became human hands. Within seconds, a man crouched before her, and Alara's breath caught for an entirely different reason. He looked to be in his mid-30s, though something in those silver eyes suggested he'd seen far more than 35 years. Scars marked his body, across his chest, down his arms, one particularly vicious mark that traced from his right temple to his jaw. Dark hair fell to his shoulders. Muscles coiled beneath bronze skin spoke of strength that went beyond physical. "You're awake," he said, his voice like distant thunder. "Good. We were beginning to worry." "Who?" Alara's voice came out as a croak. "Who are you?" The man smiled, and it transformed his harsh features into something almost gentle. "My name is Cale Stormborn, and we," he gestured to the 9 wolves still surrounding them, "have been waiting a very long time for you, Alara Moonwhisper." "You know my name." It wasn't a question. "We know everything about you," Kyle said softly. "We've been searching for you for 1,000 years. Alara's mind reeled. That's impossible." "Is it?" Kyle tilted his head. "Is it more impossible than an Omega surviving mate? Rejection? More impossible than walking through a blizzard without dying? More impossible than 10 ancient wolves finding you at the exact moment before death claimed you?" "I don't understand." "You will." Kyle stood, pulling a cloak from somewhere and wrapping it around Alara's shoulders. "But first, you need food, warmth, and rest. Explanations can wait until you're strong enough to hear them." One by one, the other wolves shifted. 9 more warriors emerged, 4 men, 5 women, each one scarred, powerful, radiating that same ancient presence. They moved with the efficiency of a unit that had worked together for lifetimes, building a fire, producing food and water from hidden packs, creating a small haven of warmth and safety in the abandoned barn. A woman with hair like spun copper and eyes the color of moss knelt beside Alara, offering a water skin. "Drink slowly," she advised. Her scent was earthy and rich, damp soil after rain, crushed sage, and something sweet like wild berries. "Your body's been through trauma. We don't want you getting sick." Alara drank, the water so cold it made her teeth ache, but she'd never tasted anything so sweet. "Thank you," she whispered. The woman smiled. I'm Thorn. That's ash, ember, stone, river, shadow, frost, dawn, and dusk. She pointed to each warrior in turn. And you've met Kale, our leader. The Shadow Guard, Kyle added, crouching by the newly lit fire, sworn to the moon goddess herself to protect and serve the matriarch when she finally awakens. That word, matriarch. It echoed in Alara's mind, familiar and foreign all at once. I'm not a matriarch, Alara said weakly. I'm an Omega. I'm nothing. Kyle's expression hardened. Is that what they told you? It's what I am. No. The single word carried such certainty that Alara fell silent. That is what they made you believe you were. There's a significant difference. Ember, a tall warrior with bronze skin and eyes like burning coals, approached. With a bowl of steaming broth, the scent of herbs and meat made Alara's stomach clench with hunger. Eat, Ember commanded gently. Then we talk. Alara ate, and with each spoonful of warmth, felt a bit more of her strength return. The Shadow Guard settled around the fire, some in human form, some shifting back to their massive wolf shapes. They watched her with a mix of reverence and curiosity that made Alara's skin prickle. Finally, when the bowl was empty, and Alara felt more human than she had since the rejection, Kyle spoke. There's a prophecy, he began, his voice taking on the cadence of a storyteller, as old as our kind, older perhaps, passed down through generations, whispered in nursery rhymes, carved into ancient stones in languages most have forgotten. A prophecy about what? Alara asked. Kyle's silver eyes caught the firelight. About you. He recited the words, and they fell like stones into still water. When the moon bleeds red and hope grows thin. When darkness rises and chaos begins, the matriarch will wake from her binding sleep, born of sorrow and rejection deep. She will be marked by the weakest name, carry within her the eternal flame, greater than Alpha, fiercer than any throne. She will rise to claim what's hers alone. 10 shall guard her, sworn by ancient right, shadow warriors forged in endless night. She will come when packs forget their way, the Luna sovereign, the Queen of Grey. Silence followed the last word. Alara stared at Kale, her mind struggling to connect the pieces. The Queen of Grey, she finally whispered. That's just a story. My mother used to sing it to me when I was small, but it's just a fairy tale. Is it? Kyle leaned forward. Born of sorrow, check. Rejection deep, check. Marked by the weakest name. Omega is as weak as names come in our hierarchy. Greater than Alpha. Well, we'll get to that. I don't have a wolf, Alara protested. How can I be any kind of queen when I can't even shift? You have a wolf, Kale said with absolute certainty. She's been there all along, sleeping, bound by magic so powerful it took us 1,000 years to track its signature. Magic? But who would... Alara's breath caught. My parents, Kale nodded slowly. Your parents bound your wolf when you were an infant. We don't know why yet, but we will find out. Thorn moved closer, her expression sympathetic. The binding was meant to protect you, most likely, to hide you until you were strong enough to handle your power. Power, Alara laughed bitterly. I don't have any power. Don't you? Shadow, a lean warrior with midnight black hair and eyes like storm clouds, spoke for the first time. His scent was clean and sharp, night-blooming jasmine and steel. Tell me, what happened when the Alpha rejected you? The bond broke. It hurt. But you survived, Shadow interrupted. Mate rejection kills 99% of wolves who experience it. The pain alone stops most. Hearts within minutes. You not only survived, you walked for hours through a blizzard. Explain that. Alara couldn't. The rejection didn't break you, Kyle said softly. It broke the binding. Your parents' magic was tied to your perceived weakness, to your role as Omega, to your place in the pack hierarchy. When Dominic rejected you, when he cast you out, he shattered the very foundation that binding rested on. Your wolf, Thorn added, her eyes bright, is waking up. As if summoned by the words, Alara felt it. A stirring deep within her chest in that hollow place where the mate bond had been torn away. Not a stirring. A presence, awareness, something vast and ancient uncurling from a very long sleep. Hello, little one, a voice purred in her mind, feminine and powerful and unmistakably other. "I've been waiting so long to finally meet you." Alara gasped. The bowl fell from her hands, clattering against the barn's floor. "She's here," Alara breathed. "I can hear her. My wolf, she's talking to me." The shadow guard exchanged glances, and Alara saw hope blazing in their eyes. "They bound me when you were 3 days old," the wolf continued, her mental voice growing stronger. "Wrapped me in chains of silver and moonlight, locked me so deep you couldn't feel even a whisper of my presence. But I was always here, little one. Always watching, always protecting as much as I could." "Why?" Alara demanded aloud, tears streaming down her face. "Why would my parents do this?" "Because they were afraid," her wolf said. "Afraid of what you are, afraid of what I am, afraid of the destiny we carry together." "What are you?" Alara whispered. "I am Luna," the wolf replied, "first daughter of the moon goddess herself. And you, my dear Alara, are the vessel I've waited 2 millennia to inhabit. Together, we are the matriarch. Together, we are power itself." The barn seemed to tilt. Alara gripped the ground, trying to steady herself as wave after wave of energy crashed through her body. It started in her core and radiated outward, building, intensifying, demanding release. "It's time," Kyle said, standing. The shadow guard rose with him, forming a circle around Alara. "Let her out, Alara. Let Luna show you what you truly are." "I don't know how." "Yes, you do," Luna purred. "Stop fighting, stop holding back. Surrender to me and I'll show you everything." Alara closed her eyes, stopped fighting, stopped holding on to the small, scared, weak thing she'd always believed herself to be. And she let go. The transformation didn't hurt. That was the first shock. Every wolf she'd ever seen shift spoke of pain, bones breaking and reforming, muscles tearing and rebuilding. But this was like slipping into warm water, like shedding an old skin that had never quite fit. Alara felt her bones flow, reshaping themselves with liquid grace, felt her skin tingle as fur emerged, not gray, not brown, but silver that shimmered with an inner light. Felt her senses explode outward, suddenly able to smell individual herbs in Ember's broth, hear the heartbeat of a rabbit a mile away, see in perfect clarity despite the barn's dim interior. And she felt herself grow, and grow, and grow. When the shift completed, Alara stood on 4 paws, her head nearly touching the barn's roof. She looked down at Kale, and the leader of the shadow guard barely reached her shoulder. She was massive, easily twice the size of any alpha she'd ever seen, her silver fur gleaming with an ethereal glow that pushed back the darkness. "Beautiful," Luna whispered in their shared mind. "You're so beautiful." Alara turned, catching her reflection in a puddle of melted snow. Her eyes blazed with a light that was neither gold nor green nor amber, but pure white, like the full moon itself. She threw back her head and howled, and the sound shook the barn to its foundations. Birds exploded from trees a mile away. The snow on the ground rippled outward in waves. And somewhere, in the packlands she'd been cast from, she knew every wolf stopped and turned toward that sound with fear and wonder. The shadow guard knelt as one. Even in their human forms, even as ancient and powerful as they were, they bowed their heads before her. "The matriarch lives," Kyle said, his voice thick with emotion. "After 1,000 years, the Luna sovereign has returned. Blessed be the moon goddess." "Blessed be," the others echoed. Alara shifted back to human form, the change as effortless as breathing. She stood naked in the center of the barn, silver light still dancing along her skin, power crackling in the air around her. "What am I?" she asked, her voice stronger than it had ever been. "You," Kyle stood, meeting her eyes with reverence and respect, "are the future. You are the one wolf in a generation born with the full blessing of the moon goddess. You are judge, protector, and queen. You are the matriarch." Thorn wrapped the cloak back around Alara's shoulders. "And we," she said softly, "are yours to command." The days that followed blurred together in a haze of discovery and training. The Shadow Guard had established a camp deep in neutral territory, far from packlands and human settlements. Here, in a valley protected by ancient wards that Kale refreshed daily, Alara learned what it truly meant to be Luna sovereign. She learned to shift at will, the transformation becoming as natural as breathing. Learned to control the immense strength that came with her wolf form, to move with grace despite her massive size. Learned to harness the power that radiated from her core, to call it forth when needed and tamp it down when stealth was required. But those were just the physical skills. The true revelations came in the quieter moments when her abilities manifested in unexpected ways. Feel their emotions, Kyle instructed during one training session. Don't just smell the fear or anger. Reach out with your power and actually feel what they're feeling. Alara, in human form, stood in the center of the camp while the shadow guard circled her. She closed her eyes, extending her awareness beyond her own body. And there, she felt them. Thorn's quiet pride mixed with lingering worry. Ember's fierce joy and absolute loyalty. Ash's calm determination, each one a distinct emotional signature, as unique as their physical sense. I can feel all of you, Alara breathed. Now, Kale said, try to soothe. River injured his shoulder yesterday during sparring. Can you ease his pain? Alara found River in the circle, located the tight knot of discomfort radiating from his left shoulder. She reached out with her power, imagining it as a warm, healing light. River gasped, and when Alara opened her eyes, he was rotating his shoulder with wonder. It's gone, he said, his voice awed. The pain is completely gone. Empathic healing, Dawn, a quiet warrior with hair like spun gold, explained. Only the most. Powerful Lunas can do it, and even then, it takes years to master. You did it in your first attempt. As the training progressed, Alara discovered more abilities. The power to project her emotions onto others, to compel obedience with nothing but her voice, to sense lies like discordant notes in a symphony. She could share strength with injured wolves, could sense threats from miles away, could communicate telepathically with any wolf who opened their mind to her. But more than the powers, Alara found something she'd never had before: family. The Shadow Guard became her pack in every way that mattered. Thorn taught her about herbs and healing. Ember sparred with her, teaching combat techniques refined over centuries. Stone, a massive warrior with earth-brown fur and eyes like amber, showed her how to read tracks and hunt. River, whose element was water, taught her to move with fluid grace. Shadow became her stealth instructor, teaching her to move without sound, despite her massive wolf form. Frost, with his ice-blue eyes and white fur, showed her how to survive in any climate. Dawn taught her strategy and pack politics. Dusk, Dawn's twin, taught her the old laws and prophecies. Ash, the fire wielder among them, taught her to channel her power through emotion rather than suppressing it. And Kyle taught her what it meant to lead. Power without wisdom is just destruction, he said one evening as they sat by the fire. The others were on patrol, giving them a rare moment alone. You have immense power, Alara, more than any wolf I've seen in 1,000 years of existence, but power isn't what makes a true leader. What does? Alara asked, her fingers absently braiding strands of grass. Understanding, Kale said. Compassion balanced with strength, the wisdom to know when to show mercy and when justice demands severity. He paused, his silver eyes reflecting the firelight. You were cast out, rejected, humiliated in front of your entire pack. You have every right to be angry, to want revenge. I am angry, Alara admitted. So angry sometimes I can barely breathe. Dominic's scent still lingers in my memory. Forest, embers, ozone, steel. I can still feel the moment he tore our bond apart. Good, Kyle said, surprising her. Don't suppress that anger, but don't let it control you either. When the time comes to face him, and it will come, you'll need to decide what kind of leader you want to be. The kind who rules through fear and retribution, or the kind who rules through strength and justice? Alara met his eyes. Is there a difference? All the difference in the world, Kyle said softly. Fear breeds resentment. Justice breeds loyalty. He reached out, gently taking her hand. I've seen empires rise and fall, Alara. I've watched rulers who could have been great destroy themselves through vengeance. Don't let Dominic's rejection define you. Don't let his cruelty turn you into something you're not. The touch of his hand sent warmth through Alara's body, different from the power that always thrummed beneath her skin. This was gentler, more personal. She looked at their joined hands and felt the ghost of a bond beginning to form. Not the instant, overwhelming connection she'd felt with Dominic, but something slower, deeper, chosen rather than fated. The bond isn't there anymore, Alara said quietly. The mate bond with Dominic, it's completely gone. I know, Kyle replied. Does that mean I can never have a mate, that I'll always be alone? Kale's fingers tightened slightly around hers. The moon goddess gives fated mates, yes, but she also gave us free will, the ability to choose our own path. Some of the strongest bonds I've witnessed weren't fated at all. They were chosen, built over time through trust and respect and genuine affection. Have you ever had a mate? Alara asked. Fated or chosen? No, Kyle said. I've been waiting. His silver eyes met hers with an intensity that made her breath catch. The prophecy was clear. The matriarch's guard would serve her, protect her, stand beside her. It said nothing about what else we might be to each other. The scent of pine and winter snow intensified, mingling with Alara's lavender and morning dew. The air between them crackled with possibility. Kale! A howl split the night. Frost signaled that strangers approached. The moment shattered. Kale was on his feet instantly, shifting to his massive black wolf form. Alara shifted a heartbeat later, her silver fur gleaming in the moonlight. The shadow guard materialized from the darkness, forming a protective circle around Alara. Whatever was coming, they would face it together. The stranger who stumbled into their camp was young, barely past his first shift, and absolutely terrified. His scent, cinnamon and smoke with an underlayer of blood, marked him as from the Iron Paw Pack, one of the 3 major packs bordering the Silver Pine territory. Please, he gasped, falling to his knees as soon as he saw Alara in her wolf form. Please, you have to help us. Alpha Dominic, he's gone mad. He's declaring war on anyone who questions his authority. He killed his own beta yesterday for suggesting maybe the moon goddess made no mistake. 3 more packs have sworn allegiance to him. He's building an army. Alara shifted to human form. Dusk immediately draped a cloak around her shoulders. Why would he do that? The young wolf, he couldn't have been more than 18, met her eyes with desperate hope. Because you're alive. Someone saw you 3 days ago, hunting near the eastern border. They reported to their alpha, word spread, and now Dominic is terrified. He knows what he did. He knows he rejected the true matriarch, and he knows that when you return, when you claim what's yours, he'll have to answer for it. So he's building an army to kill me before I can challenge him, Alara said flatly. He's building an army to kill anyone who might support you, the young wolf corrected. Please, my pack, we don't want war, but we can't stand against Dominic alone. We need the matriarch. We need you. Kyle, in human form now, moved to stand beside Alara. It's your choice, he said quietly. We can stay hidden, build your strength, wait until you're ready. And let Dominic slaughter innocent wolves in the meantime? Alara shook her head. No. If he wants a confrontation, let's give him one. She looked at the young messenger. Tell your alpha that the matriarch will meet Dominic at the harvest grounds at sunset tomorrow. Tell every pack that wants peace to send witnesses. And tell Dominic, she smiled, cold and sharp. Tell him the Omega he rejected would like to have a conversation about respect. The messenger's eyes widened. He bowed deeply. Thank you, matriarch. Thank you. As he disappeared into the night, Ember whistled low. Sunset tomorrow? That's less than 24 hours. I know, Alara said. We'll be outnumbered, Stone pointed out. Even if only 4 packs join Dominic, that's still close to 200 wolves against 11 of us. I know, Alara repeated. And you're still relatively new to your powers, Thorn added. You've only been training for 3 weeks. I know, Alara said a third time. Then she turned to face her guard, her family, and smiled. But I'm not the same wolf I was 3 weeks ago. I'm not the scared Omega who let herself be cast out without a fight. I am Alara Moonwhisper, Luna's sovereign, the matriarch prophesied. And it's time Dominic Ashcroft learned the cost of his mistake. The harvest grounds at sunset were transformed. What had been a place of celebration during that terrible ceremony 4 weeks ago was now a battlefield waiting to happen. Dominic stood at the center, flanked by his new beta, a cruel woman named Sienna whose scent of cinnamon and iron hung heavy in the air, and nearly 30 wolves in attack formation. But the grounds were also ringed with witnesses. The Iron Paw Pack had come, along with the Riverside Pack and the Mountain Crest Pack. neutral parties, there to see justice done. Among them, Alara spotted her parents, their faces ashen with fear and guilt. Alara walked into the clearing in human form, wearing a simple white dress that Thorn had crafted for her. The shadow guard flanked her, 5 on each side, Kyle at her right hand. They hadn't shifted yet, but their power rolled off them in waves, making lesser wolves whimper and back away. Dominic's amber eyes widened when he saw her. His nostrils flared as her scent, lavender and morning dew, but stronger now, laced with power, washed over him. "Alara," he said, and there was something in his voice. Regret? Fear? She neither knew nor cared. "Alpha Dominic," she replied coolly. "I received your message. Well, not from you directly, but I heard you were gathering an army to hunt me down. I thought I'd save you the trouble." "You shouldn't have come back," Dominic said. "I gave you a chance to live, to disappear quietly." "You gave me a death sentence," Alara corrected. "You rejected me, tore our bond apart, and threw me into a blizzard to die. The fact that I survived wasn't your mercy. It was the moon goddess's intervention." Sienna stepped forward, her lips curled in a sneer. "The moon goddess made a mistake bonding you to our alpha. You're weak, defective. You don't even have a—" "I wouldn't finish that sentence if I were you," Alara interrupted softly. The scent of her power, ozone and moonlight, began to intensify. Sienna snarled and shifted, her wolf form sleek and russet-colored, built for speed. She lunged at Alara without warning, teeth bared, claws extended. Alara didn't shift, didn't move, just raised one hand, and Sienna froze mid-leap, suspended in the air by invisible force. The watching wolves gasped. Dominic went pale. "I said," Alara repeated, her eyes beginning to glow with white light. "I wouldn't finish that sentence." She clenched her fist, and Sienna dropped to the ground, whimpering. "I'm not weak, I'm not defective, and I have a wolf you couldn't even comprehend." She shifted then, and the transformation was like watching a star being born. Silver light exploded outward, her form expanded, grew, became something massive and terrible and beautiful all at once. When the light faded, the silver wolf stood before them, easily twice the height of any alpha present, her white eyes blazing with the power of the moon goddess herself. The shadow guard shifted behind her. 10 massive wolves, each one a dire wolf of legend, each one dwarfing even the largest alpha in Dominic's army. They spread out in formation, a wall of unstoppable force backing their queen. Dominic's army wavered, several wolves whimpered and backed away. A few of the younger ones turned and ran outright. Alara took one step forward, just one, and 23 wolves dropped to their ori, bellies in submission. Only Dominic remained standing, his amber eyes wide with terror and dawning comprehension. "What are you?" he breathed. "I am what you rejected." Alara's mental voice rang through the minds of every wolf present, clear as a bell. "I am what you threw away. I am the matriarch, the Luna sovereign, the one the prophecy foretold, and you, Dominic Ashcroft, made the single greatest mistake of your pathetic life when you chose pride over destiny." "Please," Dominic whispered, and it was the same word Alara had gasped when her parents turned away. "Please. I didn't know." "You knew enough," Alara cut him off. "You knew I was your fated mate. You knew the moon goddess herself chose me for you. But you rejected me anyway because I was weak, because I was Omega, because I didn't fit your image of what a Luna should be." Kyle's massive black wolf moved to stand beside Alara, his silver eyes locked on Dominic. The message was clear. The matriarch was not alone. She would never be alone again. "Mercy," Dominic said, dropping to his knees. "I'm begging you. Mercy." Alara shifted back to human form. Dawn immediately draped a cloak around her. She walked forward until she stood directly in front of the kneeling alpha, the wolf who'd once seemed so powerful and now looked so small. "You want mercy?" Alara asked softly. "Did you show me mercy when you rejected me? When you had your guards throw me past the borders into a killing blizzard?" "No," Dominic's voice cracked. "No, I didn't. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." "Are you sorry for what you did? Or sorry you got caught?" Dominic's silence was answer enough. Alara looked past him, to the watching wolves, to the packs gathered to witness. I could kill him, she said clearly. By law, by right, by every code our kind holds sacred, I could end his life right here. He rejected his fated mate. He cast out a pack member without trial. He's built an army to hunt down and murder wolves who might support me. Death would be just. The crowd held its breath. But I am not him, Alara continued. I will not let his cruelty define my rule. I will not start my reign with unnecessary blood. She looked down at Dominic. You will step down as alpha of the Silver Pine Pack. You will submit to judgment by a council of neutral alphas. You will spend the next year serving the weakest members of whatever pack takes you in, learning the value of those you once scorned. And if, after that time, you've proven yourself worthy of redemption, you may rejoin pack life as a regular member, never as alpha, never as beta, just as a wolf who learned his lesson. Dominic's shoulders shook. Thank you, he whispered. Don't thank me, Alara said coldly. Thank the moon goddess that I'm choosing to be better than you. She turned to face the assembled wolves. I am Alara Moonwhisper, Luna Sovereign, the matriarch returned. These lands, the Silverpine territory, the harvest grounds, and all neutral zones, within 100 miles, are now under my protection. I claim them by right of prophecy, by right of power, and by right of the moon goddess's blessing. She felt the land respond to her claim, felt the ancient magic woven into the very soil recognize her as its rightful queen. Power surged through her, and her eyes blazed white. I declare new laws, Alara's voice rang out. No wolf will be judged by rank alone. Omega, Beta, Alpha, all are equal before the moon goddess. No mate bond will be rejected without the consent of both parties. No pack member will be cast out without trial and the right to defend themselves. Violence against the helpless will be punished with exile. Cruelty will be met with justice. Kyle shifted to human form and knelt before her. The shadow guard followed suit. We pledge ourselves to the matriarch, Kyle said, his voice carrying across the silent crowd. By blood, by oath, by destiny itself. Where she leads, we follow. Her enemies are ours. Her justice is ours. Her reign is ours to protect. By blood, by oath, by destiny itself, the shadow guard echoed. One by one, wolves from the watching packs came forward and knelt. The Iron Paw Alpha, the Riverside Alpha, the Mountain Crest Alpha, younger wolves, older ones, Omegas who'd never dared to dream of standing tall. They knelt before Alara not out of fear, though they feared her power. They knelt because she offered something no other leader had: hope. Finally, two figures emerged from the crowd. Marcus and Lydia Moonwhisper, their faces lined with guilt and sorrow, approached their daughter. Alara, her mother whispered, we need to explain. You bound my wolf, Alara said flatly. When I was 3 days old, you wrapped her in magic and locked her away. Why? Her father spoke, his voice heavy. Because we were terrified. You were born during a blood moon, with silver fur and white eyes. The prophecy said the matriarch would come, but it also said she would face terrible danger. Ancient enemies would rise to destroy her before she could claim her power. We thought if we hid what you were, if we bound your wolf until you were older and stronger, we could protect you. Instead, you condemned me to 23 years of believing I was nothing, Alara said. 23 years of humiliation, of weakness, of being invisible. We know, her mother sobbed, we know, and we will carry that guilt for the rest of our lives. But please understand, we did it because we loved you. Because losing you to prophecy and destiny and ancient evil was unthinkable. Alara looked at them for a long moment, felt their remorse, their genuine anguish through her empathic abilities. They had made a terrible choice, one that had nearly killed her, but they had made it out of love, however misguided. I'm not ready to forgive you, she said finally. Not yet, maybe not ever. But I understand why you did it. She gestured to Thorn. The shadow. Guard will find you work in our territory, useful work, helping rebuild what the old regime destroyed. If you prove yourselves worthy of redemption, we'll speak again. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was a chance. More than they deserved, perhaps. But Alara was learning that leadership meant balancing justice with mercy, even when mercy hurt. As the sun set and the moon rose, full and silver and beautiful, Alara stood at the center of the harvest grounds, surrounded by her pack. Not the pack she was born into, but the one she'd chosen and who'd chosen her in return. Kyle moved to stand beside her, and their shoulders brushed. No mate bond glowed between them, but something else did. Something they were building together, brick by brick, choice by choice. "You did well," he said softly. "I didn't kill him," Alara replied. "Part of me wanted to." "I know, but you chose justice instead. That's what makes you worthy of this power." Alara leaned slightly into his warmth. "Stay with me?" she asked. "Not as my guard, not as my subject, but as whatever we're becoming?" Kyle's hand found hers. "For as long as you'll have me," he promised. "For as long as the moon goddess allows. For as long as there's breath in my body." The bond snapped into place then, not fated, but chosen. Not forced by destiny, but built through trust and respect and genuine affection. It felt nothing like what she'd had with Dominic. That had been a wildfire, consuming and destructive. This was a hearth fire, steady and warm and permanent. "Well," Ember said, breaking the moment with a grin, "I suppose that means we need to plan a mating ceremony, a proper one this time." The Shadow Guard laughed, the sound rich and warm. Alara found herself laughing too, the sound strange and wonderful after so many years of silence. Weeks passed. The Silverpine Pack, under new leadership, a fair-minded beta named Thomas who'd opposed Dominic's cruelty, began to heal. Omegas were given positions of respect. Laws were rewritten. The weak were protected. Other packs began to seek alliance with the matriarch. Alara's territory grew, not through conquest, but through willing submission. She ruled with strength, tempered by wisdom, with power balanced by compassion. Her parents worked in the pack kitchens, serving meals and cleaning, slowly earning their way back into their daughter's life. Alara visited them sometimes, brief conversations that grew slightly less painful each time. Dominic completed his sentence and was accepted into the Riverside Pack as a regular member. He was no longer alpha, no longer special. Just a wolf learning to live without the power he'd once wielded so carelessly. And Alara was happy. For the first time in her life, she was genuinely, completely happy. The mating ceremony took place under the full moon, with all the packs gathered to witness. Alara wore a dress of silver silk that seemed to glow in the moonlight. Kyle stood beside her in formal attire, his silver eyes full of love and pride. When they spoke their vows, not the traditional words but ones they'd written together, and completed the mate bond through chosen acceptance rather than fated requirement, the moon goddess herself seemed to bless the union. Silver light bathed the clearing. Every wolf present felt the power of it, the rightness. "I choose you," Alara said, pressing her forehead to Kale's, "not because destiny demands it, but because my heart does." "I choose you," Kale replied, "today, tomorrow, and for all the days to come." The mate mark that bloomed on Alara's throat was intricate and beautiful. A silver wolf howling at a full moon, surrounded by 10 smaller wolves. Kyle's matching mark was identical. Their bond, their pack, their future, all captured in one perfect symbol. As the celebration continued around them, as wolves danced and laughed and celebrated the dawn of a new age, Thorn approached Alara with a troubled expression. "What is it?" Alara asked. "A scout just returned from the northern border," Thorn said quietly. "There are signs, ancient markings appearing on trees, scent markers that smell of old blood and older magic. And the moon," she gestured upward. Alara looked up and felt her blood run cold. The silver moon was beginning to show the faintest hint of red at its edges. "The blood moon," she whispered. "The prophecy mentioned it." Kyle moved to her side immediately. "When the moon bleeds red and hope grows thin," he recited. "The first line of the prophecy. Whatever's coming, it's the reason you were hidden all those years, the ancient evil your parents feared." Alara squared her shoulders and felt Luna stir within her, ready and unafraid. "Then let it come," she said firmly. "I'm not the powerless Omega they cast out. I'm not the child my parents hid. I am the matriarch, and whatever darkness is rising, We'll face it together. The Shadow Guard gathered around their queen, their family, their chosen leader. And though the red moon hung overhead like a promise of trials to come, though ancient evil stirred in the shadows, though the hardest battles likely lay ahead, Alara Moonwhisper was ready. And so Alara's journey from rejected Omega to Luna Sovereign teaches us that our greatest power often lies dormant, waiting for the moment we're strong enough to claim it, that the cruelty of others cannot diminish our true worth, that found family can be stronger than blood. That leadership means choosing justice over vengeance, even when vengeance would be easier, and that sometimes being cast out is the first step toward finding exactly where you belong. But tell me, what did you think of Alara's transformation? Could you see yourself in her struggle? What would you have done differently if you'd been in her position? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one and love hearing your perspectives. If you enjoyed this story of rejection, this story of rebirth and reclaiming power, please hit that like button and share this video with anyone who needs to hear that being underestimated can be the greatest gift of all. Subscribe and tap that notification bell so you never miss the next chapter of Alara's story, because the blood moon is rising, ancient evil is stirring, and the matriarch's greatest trials are yet to come. Coming up next, the blood moon's price, where Alara faces the darkness her parents feared and discovers that being the matriarch means making impossible choices with the fate of all wolves hanging in the balance. Thank you for listening to Alara's story, and we'll see you in the next chapter. Until then, remember, you are never as weak as someone else claims you are, and your true strength cannot be bound forever. The moon goddess sees you, and she has plans far greater than you can imagine.